my name's Athena, obviously. I am originally from Oregon, but I moved down to Tampa. It's been just over a year ago. I moved down last October. So it's been a really, really cool journey. Obviously, I started in bodybuilding in Oregon. I was always athletic. I did volleyball, I did track. And then when an injury ended my volleyball career, what led me to lifting was actually PT. So I started lifting, doing physical therapy, and just kind of never stopped after that. And I was really lean. I've always kind of naturally been lean, and people all the time, probably around like age 18 or 19, started approaching me, asking me if I competed. And I was like, competed in what? And very, very quickly, I learned about bodybuilding. I learned that I had friends involved in it that I had no idea about. And from there, it was just a natural progression into my first show. And I think after you do one show, you kind of, like it's your thing or it's not. And for me, I was also really going through a lot at the time, struggling like with my own body image. I was struggling with stuff at home. I was struggling with stuff just in my personal life. And that became an outlet for me. And so, even more so than the bodybuilding itself, which was phenomenal and amazing, it became just kind of a way for me to cope with everything in a healthy way. And so once that all tied together, it just became like this really positive thing in my life that ended up becoming my life. So it's funny now, like I feel like I walk in a new gym, or I walk even like walking on the street and you see someone wearing like dark sport, or they have a wolf pack, or they have a hydro drug, and you're like, you probably compete. And sure enough, like 99% of the time, that's the case.
What was the true catalyst for you, if there was one, that made you make that decision, really? Because it's not a small decision to make.
No, yeah, man, well, honestly, so I struggled with an eating disorder for a long time too. And so kind of side by side as I was getting into lifting and stuff more, I was also struggling because I was trying to not eat, but then start this lifting thing. And really, really quickly, that didn't go very well, obviously. And I actually had a friend that was a coach. He's still a really good friend of mine. And he was like, you would be amazing if you just put weight on. And I'm kind of the kind of person where once I set my mind to something or decide on something, I do it. And I was like, I really want to do this bodybuilding thing. The more I learn about it, the more it sounds like something I would love, but I have to gain weight to do it. And that was like the moment for me where I was like, this is going to solve the problem I'm having with struggling with this eating disorder. It's also going to get me where I want to be and get me involved in this lifestyle that I'm so interested in. And so that was kind of when I was like, I'm doing it. I'm taking the plunge. And it was a really great challenge for me because I had to gain weight. I had to eat a lot of food. And really quickly, I learned how fun that was. And I just never looked back from there.
And so mentally, obviously, struggling with kind of like wanting this one thing, doing this one thing of lifting and trying to, make progress in that area, but also having kind of the side of like, I don't want to, I don't want to eat. I don't want
Mhm.
to, because we all have like these preconceived notions about things, right? I mean,
Right,
in a lot of ways, those are what control our behavior. And until we
right.
switch those things, we can't really see past what that preconceived notion was. But when you look at like bodybuilding after, well, I guess not even truly maybe bodybuilding, but just like the world of fitness in general, after
Hmm.
you started to accept like, okay, I have to do these certain things if I want to achieve these certain goals, did that like uncover this like power in you at all? Did you feel like that happens?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I really, cuz like in everything that I was going with, especially with my eating disorder, there was like all these therapies and stuff that you could go to, and all these treatments and all these things that people tried to help me with. And I never felt like I had the power to get past it, or like I really was in control of my life. And then I discovered bodybuilding, and I was like, I can do this. I can do this on my own. Not on my own. I would definitely I had so much help along the way. I had so many mentors and friends and supporters, but it was like in my own hands. And it was something I could take charge of and I could do. And with that, like seeing the day to day to week to month to yearly transformation that I was doing to myself, that was super powerful. And that's what I kind of try and preach to everyone, because people have seen where I've come from and they commend me, but I'm like, anybody can do it, like it's nothing that's out of anybody's hands.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a really cool and really important lesson that I've taken into other areas of my life too, is that just because you see something that seems unattainable or something that seems hard, like if you're interested in it and if it's something you want to be a part of and pursue, go for it, because you can get there. Anybody can get there.
Are you a personal trainer, online fitness coach, or gym owner on the verge of burnout? Are you wanting to grow your fitness business but can't add more hours to your hectic schedule? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today. Yeah, I think in a world of social media, we tend to, on a small scale, maybe idolize individual people even more than we did before. We see that, like, oh, this person has this physique, or this person is, has this, if it's bodybuilding, maybe this won this show, or whatever.
Right.
Or, in the business world, oh, this person has, $1 million business, or they have, 20
Right.
clients, only have 5. I can never get to 20 or 50 or whatever it may be.
Right.
They have a car that I like. And like you said, we don't really think, or I think a lot of people, I think there's that minority of people out there that are like, no question, it's like I can easily, or I can get that no matter what, or like
Right. Right.
there's those people out there. But for most of us, it's like we do have that level of doubt in us, like, oh man, can I get there? How did they get there? And I think that it's so powerful that you mentioned bodybuilding as being kind of that catalyst for you, of like, it started to make you see that it doesn't necessarily take a gifted person per se, or a special person, or a type of person to do something. It just takes
Right.
a person who's really willing to stick with it and do the right things and do them long enough. And I think that it's so cool that we can apply that to anything, whether it be education or business or bodybuilding or anything, and be like, all right, what are the right ways to do this? Do I care enough about it? And then you can just kind of go do it and take that adventure.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think, like I said, it's been something that I have seen empower so many people, and that's one thing I love about it too, is like all sports are great. I think all sports are beneficial, but bodybuilding is, like, even more than anything else I've seen, is something where you yourself, even if you never step on the Olympia stage or never compete in a national show, you can go from never even being in a gym to getting a trophy at a show, and that's a huge accomplishment. And I think that it's really hard to find something else where you can make so much progress and really achieve something on such different levels, but it's still a huge accomplishment.
For sure. And I think it's cool that, the lessons, and not just the lessons of like hard work and discipline, which I think are obviously like huge lessons to take out of the situation, but of like, here's how we take care of ourselves. Like, it's such a weird
Right.
thing that people are really learning that just by a sport.
I've worked off and on as a personal trainer, full time, part time, online for years, and yeah, like it always astounds me when I ask clients, like, do you track macros? Are you familiar with macros? Are you familiar with, caloric intake, just like the basics? And they'll be like, oh no, well, I don't do anything like that. And I'm like, well, it's not like just a bodybuilding thing. Like it's a basic nutrition thing. But yeah, I think a lot of people that are outside of this world, or outside of the sports world at least, they see it as like this foreign thing, when really it's like basic knowledge, in my opinion, or should be, like you said.
Yeah.
um and just essential information in staying healthy.
Interesting how it's associated with like almost being like an extreme like fitness junkie.
Well, and I get that all the time. People are like, you love the gym, and you, like, don't get me wrong, I do love the gym. I will never deny that. But what I always tell people when they come to me with stuff like that is, I'm like, I mean, I do love it, but mostly I love feeling good a lot more than I dislike going to the gym, if that makes sense. Like those hard mornings, they're hard sometimes, and those workouts are hard, and it's not always fun to eat healthy all the time. But I would much rather do that and make that sacrifice, if that's what you want to call it, than make the sacrifice of my health and my longevity and my well-being, because that's much more valuable to me. I also work as a nurse, and I've worked specifically in like plastic surgery settings, and I have my aesthetics license. So I've kind of tied those two together. And for about the past like 6 months, I worked at a clinic where we offer a lot of different like body modification procedures. And I have to be really careful about what I say, because when people come in for a consult and they don't go to the gym and they don't eat healthy, but they're like, I just want to lose like 60 pounds. Can this surgery do that for me? I'm like, how do I nicely say this? Like, because the everything in me wants to be like, it's a better idea, because like you said, it's that instant gratification. But then what? It's gonna be like, where do you go from there? You're gonna run into problems down the road, or you're gonna want more. Whereas like the gym, I feel like just getting over that push, and like you said, getting past that initial, like, you're not gonna see results tomorrow, but give it a month and you are. Like, getting past that initial point and start feeling better, start seeing and the results that you want to see in the mirror, then people get it. But it's so hard, especially in today's day and age where, like you said, everything is instant. What do you mean a month? What do you mean 6 months? No, I want it tomorrow.
Yeah. Are you a personal trainer who wants to scale and grow your business online? Have you been coaching online for years, yet don't know how to incorporate online into your current business model? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today. But kind of going back a little bit, when you first got into bodybuilding, and you kind of made that decision to do that, take us through kind of what that initial experience was like, and going through your first prep and all those kind of things, the first time things.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, my first prep. I look back on it. I think I was 19 when I did my first show. And my coach was phenomenal. He was awesome. But it was fun. I remember that. So I've always been really small. So more than anything, my first prep, I remember I was never hungry. I was like, even up to the day of my show, my macros were pretty high. I was eating a lot. And so I was hearing all these people like, oh, like, you're in for it, like, it's gonna be rough. And I feel like I breezed through that whole thing. And I was a little nervous to get on stage, but I was just so excited. I was like soaking up the whole experience, and my parents had never seen anything like it before, and they thought I was absolutely crazy. They were like, "What are you doing?" But I loved it. I remember that more than anything. And I remember like my first show, I was like, I'm hooked. But yeah, let's see. My first tan, I did everything you don't do when you like my first tan. I remember that specifically. Like, I sat down on a toilet seat and had to get re-tanned because I ruined that. I ruined the hotel sheets. I like my bikini broke right before finals. Didn't have a backup, didn't have backup heels. So they like physically glued it to me. And we made it through. But yeah, I definitely like I did all the don'ts for sure for my first show, but I still had the best time.
Was it kind of alarming to you when you go through this thing that you think is going to be hard, then it's not as hard as that everybody's saying, and then you do a kind of encounter this new thing that is like, okay, I've done this before, I kind of know what to expect, but then it's like way different. Was that weird at all?
Yeah, so my next prep, I feel like I got all of the difficulty of prep, and then all the difficulty that I didn't get my first prep too. And I was in nursing school at the time. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and I was prepping, but I lost like 30 pounds in like a month. And my coach was like, what is going on? What are you doing? And he thought that I was like going back into my eating disorders phase, because I had kind of discussed that with him. And I was like, no, I'm eating so much food. And we were getting ready for a show, but I ended up having to kind of stop that prep probably like 2 months before the show because I lost so much weight and I was dying. I mean, like my professors in nursing school were like, if this is bodybuilding, we're telling everyone to never do it. But it was actually, we found out that all of my hormones had plummeted, and it wasn't because of prep. It was because of a number of like the autoimmune disorder and a number of other things. And so that was very eye opening because it taught me that I need to be way more on top of my blood work because it was something that had been occurring for a while. And B, it definitely humbled me and showed me how tough a prep can be. And when you hear people talk about, like having hurdles in their prep and facing a lot of barriers, that was that prep for me for sure. And it made me really appreciate the first process I went through and also know kind of what to look for moving forward and how to navigate it in a way where I don't have to face those things in the future. So we did eventually get everything dealt with and do another prep, but that was really tough for sure.
Were there times during that prep when you thought maybe that you wouldn't be able to do it anymore?
I never really played with the idea of not bodybuilding anymore. For me, it was more so of like, which show am I going to do? What are we going to do? And my coach was really, really perceptive and awesome about being like, let's make a new game plan. Let's set a date. Cause I was like, I need something to work towards. I still wanted a date, but I knew it wasn't going to be the one we had picked. And so it was never really honestly a thought in my mind of not bodybuilding anymore. It was really more so of just a new game plan. How are we going to get past this and move forward?
Did it make you just in general just start to maybe have like a different perspective on bodybuilding at all?
Yeah, definitely. Because like my first prep, it was kind of like, okay, I'm in pretty good shape. All right, cool. Let's gain a little bit more weight, and then we're gonna do like a 2 month cut, and then you're gonna be on stage. It was very quick, very short. And so of course from that experience, I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of how it works. So then coming off of that next experience, my coach was like, gosh, what year was it? I think it was like 2019 or 2020. He was like, yeah, maybe like 2021. And to me, when he said that, I remember reading that and I was like, what? Like, that's a year away.
Yeah.
And that was when I realized that this is a long-term thing. And I knew, in hindsight, I was like, a year? That was like barely long enough. But at the time, it was shocking because everything had been so much quicker. But yeah, I definitely kind of shifted my perspective, and I went to the Olympia this past year and I was talking with someone and they were like, yeah, I think I'm going to be on stage like 2025. And I was like, dang, like you're like, you really know what you're doing. So I definitely kind of learned that long-term mindset. When I talk to people about bodybuilding, the number one thing, because most of the people I talk to are in the gym, so they're fitness people, but their number one thing is like, oh, I could never do the diet. But the number two thing is the commitment, because like you said, it's not like even like running a marathon, you train for how long? Like 6 months, a year. I don't know. I don't want to disrespect any marathon runners. I know it's serious, but it's like you train for X amount of time and then you have a season or you have like a big race. And with bodybuilding, it's like, yeah, we'll see where we're at in a year or 2 years. And it's really, truly like, it's like you said, it's a lifestyle. So it's a lifelong commitment. And I think that's another thing that people don't often realize is, you see the people on the Olympia stage and like, they're like, people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to be up there in a year or two. And it's like, nah, those people are like 15 years into their career. That's something they've been working on for half their life.
Yeah.
So yeah, that commitment I think it's something that's not always talked about, but it's definitely a huge component.
This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout.
I have so many people that ask me why I do it, and they compare it to, other sports, and they're like, so for the money? And I'm like, no, if you're doing bodybuilding for the money, I have a really bad news for you. You're going to spend a lot more than you'll ever make. And people are always shocked by that. But that's another thing that I think people fail to realize is like everyone you see, even the people on the Olympia stage, the biggest stages in the world, whatever, basically we're all paying for that. We're paying to be here. We're paying to be in this sport, and we're doing it because we love it. And I think that's another unique thing about it is once you get past high school or college, most sports that you play, you win money or something. And bodybuilding is really just, we're in it because we love it and we're passionate about it. And if you're one of the select few that is at the very top, you might make back some or most of what you spend, maybe if you're lucky. But yeah, it's a commitment out of love and passion more so than anything else.
Is it something to where you have this plan of like, I want to achieve these things in X amount of time or years? And if I don't, then maybe we reconsider like doing the sport, or is it for you just more of like is it the truly just like the lifestyle of, hey, I want to be a bodybuilder and I want to compete. And if we win, that's awesome. And that's great. And that's the goal, but it's not necessarily what's driving my career in the sport.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I definitely have from the beginning, like the first day that I worked with the coach I'm currently with, I was like, so this is what I want. And he's like, we're going to do our best to get there. And I unfortunately am not, I'm not an athlete that prides myself on participation awards. I always want to win. I always want to do better. And for me in this sport, that definitely means better than the last time I competed, better for myself. That eventually will mean, like I qualified for nationals this year, so I'm going to be competing next year in nationals. I want to place there, and then see where we go from there. But I'll always have that drive. I always want to do better. And I've always told my coach, like, if I'm going to enter a show, I want to be ready. I want to be at the top of that show and I want to win. And that's just my mindset. But I can appreciate the people that do it just to do it. Because I think that still takes a huge amount of commitment, no matter what you place or what show you do. But me personally, it's always about improvement. And I have some goals that I want to reach within the next 2 years for sure. So I actually am still currently dealing with a lot of hormone imbalances, and that has been a huge struggle. Like this past prep, putting weight on was wildly difficult. It was like, and I've always been lean, but I was up to like 5,000 calories, and my coach just kept upping my macros, and he's like, you're eating more than any of my men. Like so trying to figure that out and trying to kind of get a handle on that. I've been doing a lot of work with that. And I also notoriously don't rest enough, don't take enough rest days, probably don't do enough recovery work. And so I think tweaking things in those areas, like I can push myself and lift heavy. I can do as much cardio as I need to do, but I would say not the more minor details, but it's the ones that aren't as obvious that I need to work on. And so that's been a big focus for us, my hormones, my blood work, and then just recovering properly, resting properly, and using all of those things to aid in putting on muscle, improving my physique, and really perfecting the areas that need a little bit of work.
I think one cool thing that helps is like quantifying or gamifying some of those things.
Yeah, I'm definitely I actually had to stop wearing, it was like years ago, back when Fitbits were like the cool thing, but I stopped wearing mine because I got super obsessive with it. But I just recently, as in like 2 days ago, got my first Apple Watch for the sleep thing, because like you were saying, like when I can see the numbers, that's really, really helpful for me. And I can be like, all right, we're going to get 7 hours of sleep every night this week. And then it becomes, we're going to do that every week this month. And then I'm really good with numbers and patterns and consistency in that form. So
Yeah.
just like you said, like when I can quantify it is easier for me. It gives me a little bit more of something to grasp and to feel like I'm accomplishing.
Yeah. A little bit different motivation when it's something you can see, and you can kind of start to attach a feeling. I feel good about doing that because I can see that I've been doing it for this long and that kind of thing. But the obsession side, that can be a slippery slope as well.
And it was like, okay, well, I have to do 20 more than yesterday. And then it became literally like, I was like, okay, well, we're going to go for an extra 40-minute walk. And I was like, this is absurd. Like, what am I doing?
Right.
So yeah, that's exactly why I got rid of it. But I am very interested in like the sleep and stuff. So that part of it, I'm definitely going to utilize.
Yeah. It's funny how the things that we initially start off as like good things can take over our life in that way and become like this negative. It's a hard balance sometimes to find that.
Most definitely. Yeah. I think I always call it a double-edged sword, because I think if I wasn't obsessive in that way, bodybuilding would not work for me. I just wouldn't have that drive to get up at 4 a.m. or go to the gym at 10 p.m. when I get off work or whatever it is. But at the same time, there's definitely like, I have a twin sister and I love her to death, but she just doesn't have that same mindset. So like when we go on vacation or we go somewhere, I'm like, I got to go to the gym. And she's like, you don't have to go to the gym. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, I do. And sometimes I do honestly wish, like, I wish I could just not care. But like I said, then there's the other side of it where I'm so glad that I have that drive, because that's what has made all of this possible. And I have a lot of people ask me about, getting into bodybuilding, and females especially. The number one thing I tell them is like, understand what you're taking on mentally, because I believe that any female that's asking me about bodybuilding physically can do it, but mentally a lot of people are not aware of the toll that it takes. And I'm not saying that it's not exactly the same for males. It is. It's on both sides, and it's hard. It's a struggle, like you said, the balance between like, okay, I look good, but then always improving, and then coming off of a show too, like you're so lean and you see yourself so lean for so long, mentally putting 20 pounds back on, that goes against everything society tells us, and that can be such a hard hurdle to overcome. But at the same time, we also have to recognize like, hey, 10% body fat for a female is super unrealistic to maintain. So it's like you said, it's just always that balance and being able to maintain that, and it's tough for sure.
So that's the journey of it, is constantly learning and figuring out your own kind of your mental situation and your body, how's it going to respond, and all this kind of stuff. I think that's the cool part too, is it's not just like, here's the plan and we're going to follow this exact thing for 20 years or 10 years or 5 years.
Yeah.
It's constantly evolving, and I think that can be very exciting and very fun too. But I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and chatting with me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful.
If you want to, before you head out, share your socials or anything like that, you can.
Yeah. My Instagram name makes no sense because I dyed my hair, but it's Goldilocks _and_lunges_.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it's the same for TikTok, and that's pretty much the only two that I do. So
if you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.